Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and I'd like to welcome all of our viewers and listeners to an abbreviated pregame edition of this podcast, featuring some information for Week 1, opening weekend in the NFL, kickoff weekend. Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the San Francisco 49ers, the first time that the Steelers have had a home opener in the first week of the NFL season. Got to go all the way back to September 7th, 2014 against the Cleveland Browns. So the place is going to be rocking. It's now Acrisure Stadium. Used to be Heinz Field back then, and we're going to cover where you can watch and listen to the games, as well as some quick hit notes. Again, not really a full pregame this week. Partially, part of that's my fault. I was on vacation, but aside from that, hey, it's week 1. We haven't seen these teams play. It's kind of iffy as to even trying to figure out some of the injury reports, what's legitimate here, who's going to play, who's not going to play. So we're going to cover some of the bases here and make sure that everyone is caught up, including myself, because you never know. Sometimes I can also learn a thing or two or three going through some of these reports. So let's get right down to it. Just to cover the bases, game is this upcoming Sunday, September 10th, a 1 o'clock kickoff. It's going to be covered on Fox. And if you happen to look for your local Fox affiliates, we'll have this information over at steelcityunderground.com. As well as you can find the source at 506 Sports. If you see in the red, that is the 49ers at Steelers game, covering almost the entirety of the country in the Fox early window at 1 o'clock. So pretty much if you're anywhere except for like Indianapolis, DC, Baltimore, Atlanta, Carolinas, and a portion of Florida and Phoenix, Arizona, you are going to get this game. That's good news. You could just pop up the rabbit ears. You may even be able to do it on one of the NFL apps free of charge. Usually it'll check whatever the local game is, and that's what's going to feed you. But do check out the regional blackouts. Again, 506 Sports is the source for that. You could also find it, the information, and a lot of what I'm saying as a recap. You know, you're trying to figure out Sunday before that 1 o'clock kickoff, head over to steelcityunderground.com. We usually have that information up over the weekend, and we'll cover some of the other bases for this game, of course. Covered by Fox, Joe Davis, Daryl Johnson, Pam Oliver's the crew there. Sirius XM and radio will be on either 82 or 229 or available on the Sirius XM app. The San Francisco 49ers lead this series, regular season 12-10. The home team in this series, though, has won the past 5 games. That last meeting was back in 2019, September 22nd. You may remember Minka Fitzpatrick newly joining the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a loss ended with an ugly fumble. 24-20, the Steelers dropped. That was with Mason Rudolph at the helm, and now you've got some new quarterbacks here, even a changing of the guard with the San Francisco 49ers led by Brock Purdy now, who should be clear to go for this game after recovering from an injury that ended his 2022 season in the postseason. He led the NFL in rating, 112, and tied first in touchdown passes with 13 over the final 6 weeks of the 2022 season. He became the third rookie ever to win each of his first 5 career starts. That would be right in line with Big Ben Roethlisberger as being one of the others. So Purdy's looking for his 7th in a row with 2 touchdown passes. The 49ers are also featuring Christian McCaffrey, whom they traded for last season from the Carolina Panthers. He's ranked 3rd in the NFL with 1,880 scrimmage yards and 14 total touchdowns in 2022. Led all running backs in receiving yards with 741 and second in catches with 85 last season. He's one of 4 running backs all time with 4 seasons of 80-plus receptions, so quite the weapon. We're also familiar with tight end George Kittle, who also shows up on the injury report. We'll talk about that in a second. Deebo Samuel, yet another weapon with 864 scrimmage yards and 5 scrimmage touchdowns in 2022. Brandon Ayuk kind of had a turnaround year last year. as well. Set career highs with 78 receptions for 1,015 yards, 8 touchdowns in 2022. He has 6 receiving touchdowns in his past 5 road games. Let's not forget about San Francisco's defense. Nick Bosa just signing a contract that made him one of the richest players in NFL history, richest defensive contract. And of course, Joe Burrow has to go and say, hold my beer, and get an even richer contract. But we know how these guys all one-up each other. But Bosa, last year's Defensive Player of the Year, will be facing the previous year's 2021 Defensive Player of the Year. Well, not head-to-head, but, spiritually, as the teams flip the ball and flip sides against TJ Watt. So this game features both of the last 2 seasons Defensive Players of the Year that could really get after the quarterback, somebody that the Steelers definitely have to scheme or game plan for. They will also have to take a look at a former teammate. Not sure how many guys are still around from the Javon Hargraves time with the Steelers, but I'm sure there's a few guys such as Cam Hayward that remember him well as TJ Watt. But Hargrave makes his debut in San Francisco after having a pretty stellar uptick in his career in Philadelphia. He got paid, not that he was ever bad in Pittsburgh, but really shined and signed a nice contract with the 49ers in the offseason. He had career highs in sacks and tackles for loss, 11 and 10, respectively, with the Eagles last season. 14 and a half sacks and 22 tackles for loss, of course, with his 4 seasons in the Steel City. Let's not forget about Fred Warner. Very prolific linebacker, 130 tackles, 10 passes defensed in 2022. He's one of 2 linebackers when you pair with Seattle's, going back to Seattle, Bobby Wagner, that have had 115 plus tackles in each of their past 5 seasons. And then there's Talona Hufanga. A lot of people will look at him and they get that vibe and remember, Troy Polamalu's mentoring him, supposedly. So 95 tackles last season with 4 picks and 9 passes knocked down in his last season. So it gives you a little bit of an idea what the 49ers are bringing to the table. As for on the Steelers side, I keep looking around and I see, here's the referee, Alex Kemp. It's like, I'm not familiar with Alex Kemp, so it's probably a good thing for week 1, right? You got a non-conference game here outside the AFC, outside the division, so it's good for the Steelers. But on the Pittsburgh side here, Kenny Pickett led all rookies with 2,404 passing yards. He had 10 touchdowns total, 7 in the air and 3 on the ground last season. No interceptions in 7 of his final 8 starts. Najee Harris, 1,263 all-purpose yards, over 1,000 of those rushing with 10 combined touchdowns last season. 7 of those were on the ground. He had a touchdown in 4 of the final 5 games. He's one of 2 running backs, along with Austin Eckler, with 1,200 or more yards from scrimmage and 10-plus touchdowns in each of the past 2 seasons. So anybody who thinks that Najee Harris could be somebody who's washed and you're just clamoring for someone like Jaylen Warren to take that torch, you might just have to hold on uno momento, although Jaylen Warren presents his own problems as a change of pace running back that the 49ers will have to look for. The Steelers, though, they may want to attack in the air. The 49ers gave up an ungodly amount of passing yards or receiving yards to wide receivers last year. 16 touchdowns to be exact to wide receivers, 20 overall. They allowed 167.5 yards per game to opposing wide receivers. Just the wide receiver position last year, which was sixth most. Sorry, get some water here. 6th most, despite having the league's one of the league's best defenses. So might be looking for George Pickens to get off to a good start in this game, along with Deontay Johnson, who didn't have a touchdown, as we know, last year, but led the Steelers in receptions and targets overall, overwhelmingly. We'll see. He's had a pretty good rapport with Kenny Pickett to start with the preseason. Johnson led the team with 86 catches and 882 yards last year. He's one of 5 wide receivers with at least 85 or more catches in each of the past 3 seasons. He has 37 games with 5 or more catches since 2020, which ties him for 3rd most in the NFL. So very productive, at least. Just some of that's a lot of dink and dunk. So the Steelers are looking to change that with George Pickens, who was 4th among the rookies in last season with 52 catches and 800 receiving yards. He's had 50-plus receiving yards in 4 of the final 5 games of 2022 and a receiving touchdown in 3 of the final 4 home games. A lot of little nitpicky, cherry picking stuff, but good at home, right? Allen Robinson, he's set to make his debut with the Steelers. Pat Freiermuth was fourth amongst tight ends in the AFC last season. He had a career high 63 catches and 732 receiving yards. He's one of two tight ends, along with Keith Jackson, all time with 60-plus catches in each of first two career seasons. So that's a very interesting statistic. We all know TJ Watt, down year after being injured for half of it. He's the only player since 1982, however, with 70-plus sacks, 77 and a half, and 5-plus interceptions, 6 in his first 6 seasons. And last meeting with the 49ers, he had an interception and a fumble recovery, 6 passes defense, 5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 5 career games against the NFC East. A lot of that, actually, though, I believe, against the Arizona Cardinals. Alex Highsmith, off his new contract, he was fourth in the entire league, 14 and a half sacks last season. And he had a sack in 3 of his last 4 games. And then, of course, there's the ageless wonder, Cameron Hayward, one of 2 defensive linemen in 2022 with 70-plus tackles and over 10 sacks with 10 and a half. 5.5 of those sacks over the final 4 games this season. See a pattern. Steelers after the bye week with TJ Watt. And he wasn't exactly even a healthy TJ Watt. Cynthia Freeland is reporting that TJ Watt is even been clocked as being faster and his get up and go right off the line of scrimmage here through the preseason. So something else to take a look at. Of course, you've got perennial All-Pro Minkah Fitzpatrick roaming the backfield. He's tied for first in the NFL with a career best 6 interceptions last season. And he had an interception in the last meeting between these two teams, his first game as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's see, moving along. Oh, it's hard to go by all of these old statistics, last year you had the Steelers offense was only averaging 18.1 points per game and the defense was giving up 20.4. But if you skew that a little bit, the offense was scoring more than that on average and giving up less than that on defense from the bye week. And you've got similar numbers here with the San Francisco 49ers, who are giving up only 16.3 points per game defensively and scoring 26.5, but that got a little flipped as well with the quarterback changes. So we're told that Brock Purdy is going to be good to go for this game. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan feeling confident, although the injury report for the San Francisco 49ers, it's quite a big one, to be completely honest. You've got going through some of this, we had a full practice with John Feliciano. We still don't have the Friday reports as of recording. Tayshaun Gibson had been limited for 2 days. Hufanga has been limited, and then a DNP did not practice for Thursday. So to monitor to see where some of the players in the 49ers defensive backfield lie. We're also looking and monitoring a did not practice on Thursday for Travarius Ward, although Shanahan says that he should be good to go. George Kittle always seems to show up on these reports, limited with a groin. Ray McLeod, former Pittsburgh Steeler, you'll remember him. He's still more of a return specialist, limited in practice with a wrist that could really affect not only being a receiver, but, of course, special teams play. And the 49ers rested Trent Williams, and, of course, they're, I guess, in air quotes, resting Nick Bosa, who we would think for all intents and purposes might be on a pitch or a snap count. Is he in 100% football shape? You have to think that these players do things that are on the side, but it's still not organized with the team. They're still not maybe hitting and doing some of the things that you would do in a regular practice, but that didn't necessarily slow down TJ Watt when it was a very similar, I guess, hold in, hold out type situation. Jake Moody, the kicker, expected to make his NFL debut on Sunday, limited in the first 2 days of practice with a right quadricep injury. So that will be kind of interesting to keep an eye on as far as participants. And as far as participants with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you had basically Cam Hayward, not injury related. He was limited in a DMP, stomach issues, maybe a bug of some sort. Larry Ogunjobi, dude's always on the reports. Work hard, play hard, I guess. He seems to always be ready for Sundays, but noted that he's been limited the last 2 days with a foot injury. Let's see here. Where else can we jump around? I mentioned Jake Mooney, Pittsburgh Steelers. Finally, Pittsburgh Steelers have been an intriguing team for regular season starts over the last few seasons now. Taking a look at whether or not they should be underdogs, overdogs, whether anybody should underestimate what the Steelers can do. Last year, they opened up with the Cincinnati Bengals on the road in Cincinnati. Cincinnati coming off of bit playing in the Super Bowl, and they gutted that out in overtime. And I know it was like crazy. Cincinnati ran 100 plays. You ended up losing TJ Watt during this game. Cincinnati probably loses because they lose a long snapper. But then again, this is a Pittsburgh Steelers team, first time without Ben Roethlisberger, playing Mitch Trubisky as kind of their veteran quarterback. And, the season didn't get off to a good start after that because the Steelers were only able to win one of their next 7 games and dropped all the way to 2-6 before the bye week, before flipping that script entirely around and only losing 2 of their next 9 games over the course following the bye week, and just being 1 game out of the postseason. It's really hard to compare and just say like the last year stuff, but I used to say that September football was an extension of the preseason and to kind of temper or lower your expectations when it comes to sloppy football. However, Mike Tomlin had his team ready and geeked up to go. You remember old man washed up Ben Roethlisberger going into Buffalo, a favorite to win the Super Bowl, and the Steelers come and climb out of there 23-16. But then again, the Steelers lose 3 in a row after that to the Raiders, the Bengals, and the Packers. And of course, quite a bit of that having to deal with various injuries. So we're looking at what should be primarily a healthy Pittsburgh Steelers squad, according to Mike Tomlin, ready to go for this big Sunday matchup. The Steelers are going to have to hope that the brand new offensive line, kind of a key to a matchup, all these improvements that are hopefully will hold up against Bosa, against Hargrave. You got some like real dudes on this 49ers defensive side, and the Steelers definitely have the weapons to be able to combat this. But we'll see. It's still a second-year quarterback, first start of the season. Trying to pull up some more statistics or information for everyone here. As far as the 49ers side, you got Eric Armstead, you got Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa. I mentioned Fred Warner earlier. But everybody beat up in that defensive backfield is what I'm really looking at. I'm not sure that the 49ers have their other corner situation locked down with Diamador Lenore or Samuel Womack, you've got some guys that are very late round picks. Womack being entering his second year, Lenore entering his third. So you got Travarius Ward, who's actually a very solid, very good corner. You got Funga, you got Gibson. Those are solid guys in that backfield, defensive backfield. But can Kenny Pickett take advantage of this with all of the Steelers' aforementioned weapons, such as Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson? So even Pat Freiermuth, maybe get Najee Harris or Jalen Warren, Connor Hayward, somebody out of the backfield involved in some of the passing game. It's going to rely a lot on Matt Canada. We saw some good stuff in the preseason, but again, it's still preseason football. We're not really sure how that may translate to the regular season, and we know the woes that the Steelers had getting any offense generated, let alone early in games last season. When you flip the script over to the 49ers having the ball, is Brock Purdy kind of like a flash in the pan kind of guy who got lucky? Is he a system quarterback? I mean, if he is a system quarterback, he might not be a bad thing. He's one of the best systems in the National Football League, and he'll be protected by one of the best tackles in the game with Trent Williams. Of course, he's got some players to get the ball to. You've got some very highly expensive players just in his backfield with Christian McCaffrey. You've got Kyle Juszczyk, 2 of the highest paid players in their respective positions. Juszczyk, of course, a very versatile fullback, a utility guy the Steelers will have to keep their eyes on, and he helps open up things for Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, and the whole lot as far as the receiving core. And, of course, George Kittle. How can I be remiss to not mention him? Elijah Mitchell is also a very capable backup change of pace running back if they don't have McCaffrey shouldering the whole load. I think this could come down to special teams as well. You've got a rookie kicker kicking in what's been a very traditionally tough stadium to play in, and that would be Acrisure Stadium. And the weather is supposed to be a little uncooperative for this upcoming weekend. And I'm going to pull up the forecast and make sure that I am not talking out of my posterior here. But let's take a look at the Sunday forecast, daily forecast. Well, down to 68% rain, 78 degree high. This is courtesy of weather.com. Pull this up a little bigger on the screen for everyone that's watching. But if we took a look at an hourly forecast and got a pop ahead to Sunday to around maybe kickoff time, all morning, supposed to rain for everyone that's going to be out there tailgating, and then supposed to go into 1 o'clock at the very minimum with at least about a 60% chance of rain. Thunderstorms scattered throughout this as well. Listen to me. I sound like meteorologist Joe Kuzma, but I'm looking at this like this could be some pretty sloppy football. So who does it benefit the most? Probably San Francisco, because they can put the clamps down as far as their run defense, especially if that backfield can't protect against Kenny Pickett and the various weapons that the Pittsburgh Steelers have. So the Steelers offensive line is going to have to get some push. Likewise, the Steelers defense, which had previously struggled against the run, we're going to see how the new inside linebacker core, you got a trio of guys such as Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts, and Quan Alexander that are going to be roaming the middle of the field there. And we're going to see how maybe the 49ers, how those weather maybe affect this game, because it does affect the game. And it's a grass surface. It's going to be slick if there's any kind of downpour. Even just a little bit of misting can make for a cut or a turn, maybe even a ball that comes loose from the quarterback's hands, either that be Purdy or Pickett. So it's a little bit of an intangible that I'll throw on there again. And just one more time, I'm going to mention to everyone that the game is being covered on Fox, so check your local listings there. Head over to steelcityunderground.com for all of the full listings, and if you happen to, you could check out the Steelers radio network. Locally, that's 102.5 WDVE, and that's on the FM band, and 970 WBGG AM out of Pittsburgh. Bill Hillgrove, Craig Wolfley, and Max Starks on the call. And there's a number of other affiliates with the radio coverage. You could check those out also. Steelers.com has this information. We'll also have it transposed on our website. So that'll do it for us, folks. A little bit of abbreviated. I don't like to make predictions, but we've already done that show, and I really felt, especially pre-Bosa signing, but still, I'm not sure. I think he'll still have an effect on the game. How much of an effect where he gets gassed? I don't think he can play like 80% of the snaps at this point, but that's just me guessing. I don't know him in his conditioning or his routines or what he's been doing. If he's been sitting on the couch eating potato chips waiting to get his paycheck, then the Steelers should have a pretty decent day in the office. I was predicting before the weather that this could be an unexpected type of game where you might see the Steelers offense, if it performs up to the level that we saw in 5 drives with Kenny Pickett in the preseason, put up some points that you're not expecting them to. All the pieces are in place. But like I said, you got some intangibles. It's a very tough opponent to kind of prepare, or even you take guesstimate here sitting in my chair for. 49ers are a very good team. They're very well coached, and they have a lot of talent in various positions, especially top of the line positions that are important. So, folks, that'll do it for us. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as we tell everyone out there, until next time, we encourage everyone to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.